That's how bad you were. You didn't even get the joke.
But here's the thing, I got it. But I just didn't respond. So I think that's half of me to say. I just don't respond.
So. and
That's
it's not-
That's always hard to get in. School board was with a cookie chair.
I've had.
How long is it? These are
It is 6:30 and I think everybody is somewhat accounted for as far as who's not here. We have quorum.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really straightforward. and there's-
Juanine says we're good.
Yeah, we're good on the text. Okay. All right, everybody, we are going to get started here in a matter of seconds.
A good way to put it.
Okay. Good evening. It is 6:31 PM on Thursday, October 26th, and I call to order this general meeting of the Intermediate District 287 School Board. We are so excited to be here and to welcome in particular our special guests tonight. First, we will have the reading of the mission statement, which our vice chair is going to do for us this evening.
Good evening. The mission of Intermediate District 287 is to be the premier provider of innovative and specialized services to ensure that each member district can meet the unique learning needs of its students.
And will you start our introductions as well?
Sure. Ann Casey, proudly representing St. Louis Park.
I'm Crystal Brackey. I represent Richfield Public Schools.
Oh, sorry. I'm Shannon Andreessen and checking off present and absent things. Proudly representing Hopkins Public Schools.
Good evening, I'm Sarah Johansson and I represent Wayzata Public Schools.
Good evening, I'm Michelle Kuntz. I represent Orono Schools.
So that's me. Good evening, I'm Jackie Mosqueda Jones. I represent Osseo Area Schools 279.
Good evening, I'm Renee Bowman and I represent Robbinsdale District 281 schools.
Hello, I'm Heidi Marty and I represent West Tonka Schools.
And I'm Michael Birdman. I represent Edina Public Schools.
And obviously, we're also joined by many district staff here at the table, in the room and online this evening. So thanks to everyone for being here. Board member Mike Remicall from Minnetonka Public Schools is not able to be here this evening. And board members Kim Ross from Eden Prairie and Ruthie Dells from Brooklyn Center are likely en route and will be joining us shortly. So with that, we move first to approval of our general meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So, second.
We have a motion by Shannon Andreessen and a second by Heidi Marty. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the agenda is approved. Next, we have our open forum for community comments where members of our community can address the school board. I don't believe we have anybody who has asked for that this evening. Okay, thank you. So we move on to approval of the consent agenda, which contains routine business items that we approve in a group. So unless there is an individual item that a board member would like removed for individual discussion or consideration, we could entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So move.
We have a motion by Sarah Johansson, a second by Jackie Mosqueda Jones. Here is board member Kim Ross from Eden Prairie. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye and the consent agenda is approved. We are now at the share the success and recognition section of our agenda, which to be clear is our favorite part of the meeting. It's why we have all of our great guests here tonight. First up, we have our Above and Beyond winner, Ann Brummer Education Center. Principal Greg Beck is going to present that this evening.
Thank you, Chairman Brackey, Superintendent Dowd, and the board. I'm proud to be here as representing ABEC Principal Greg Beck. And Rebecca James is not able to be in attendance. She had some family commitments tonight, so I'm just going to share the nomination. We had lots of nominations this year, which is nice to see. Staff are appreciating each other and seeing the good work everybody's doing. Rebecca specifically, the staff member, she's just a ton of fun to work with. What I know of Rebecca as well, she's just one of those educational support professionals that you come in, she knows what's going on. She's directing traffic and just a very calm presence. And I was there for kids, super dependable. So she's one of those that exemplifies what it means to be in that role of an ESP and does it really well. So she's great to have as part of our team and appreciate the recognition.
Thank you. We will recognize Rebecca. Even though I can't help you. Please pass along our appreciation. There's something you would like to add, Superintendent Dowd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so you all know, I was able to come to a staff meeting at ABEC and the whole staff got to surprise her for her above and beyond. So although she isn't here tonight, know that there was a lot of love in the room from the ABEC community when she was surprised with above and beyond. Thank you.
And she gave Marcy a hug too.
Thank you so much for being here, Greg. We move to our spotlight this evening, which is Hennepin Technical College. Assistant Principal Scott Swanson is going to introduce what we are going to hear, and then again, more special guests. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Superintendent Dowd. I have the pleasure, I'm Scott Swanson, the Assistant Principal of our 287 programs at Hennepin Technical College. And I have the privilege of introducing Citlali Sanchez. She is a student in our transition program at HTC, and she's accompanied by her mother and father, Santiago and Alejandra.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Citlali Sanchez, and I'm from Eden Prairie, Hennepin Tech College. I'm 19 years old, and I have a hearing loss in both ears. I use a cochlear implant on my right side, and I use an interpreter at school to communication for needs. This is my second year at HTC. I'm resident in Richfield. For Burnsville, I went for elementary school, and then Lakeville for middle school. And then for high school, I went to Richfield. So here's my story I would like to share about me. So the hardest part for me was moving schools, making new friends, and learning new cultures. And the most proud of myself was taking like advanced classes, college class, and able to pass, get A's and B's. I just received my permit a few months ago from Kendra for helping me a lot. And I'm taking my road test on the 30th of this month to get my license. And one long term is to live in my own place. I have my dream car, Pacific, a BMW X5. And I want 2 dogs. It had to be golden doodles, a boy and a girl. I have 1 dog. Her name is Luna. I talk about her 24/7 all day. One thing I would like to share about this program is that it was easy for me to make new friends, and I have some peer who has some similar things like hearing loss, know some ASL, and staff and classes were focused. They help you focus for your future, narrow your career, and to support with your college, like what's best for you. And they also like to help you get a job, get your license. And then one thing that really helped me a lot was Tara, that she helped me find a job, which I got hired at Target last week. And now I'm in training for 2 weeks. I also want to say thank you to Jess, who has supported for me for an orientation an interview over the phone, which I put my phone and put in a speaker, and she interpret what the other person was saying, and then I also want to share that what's the difference between this program and high school was that high school you had to take most specific class that you had to require to graduate on time, and this program is that that help you for your future career and how to find your own interpreter, how to get your license. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
We always have questions. Thank you so much. Who would like to, questions or comments? Both are welcome. Go ahead, Renee.
Thank you for being here. And I would like to know what you want to be when you come out of college. What career path have you chosen?
So my main goal is to be an orthodontist.
Mm.
So during in the spring, I'm gonna take CNA classes to see like if medical field is for me. If not, then I will move to a different career.
Go ahead, Jackie.
I'm excited that you'll be working at Target. My husband works for Target as well. He helps with the computers. He is also hard of hearing. So, yeah.
Which Target?
Corporate in the help desk.
Oh,
So, I just want to say, utilize all their stuff. They pay for school, they do a lot of things, so. all you
Yeah.
gotta get-
they're gonna give me a shirt that says I am deaf, and in the back it's gonna say that tap at me on the shoulder. So if a customer needs a helper like that, then I'm have a name tag that says I'm deaf. I need I use aerosol if a customer comes up to me and needs like an aerosol.
That's great. Thank you.
Michelle.
Thank you. So what is your main challenge as you leave the comfort and the protection of 287?
Like moving on my own without like, I just like, because my mom always helped me with stuff and she teach me how to do things, so I'm like kind of scared to like leave her behind like when I get older.
Oh.
Yeah.
Everybody's very touched.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sit Lolly. My 29-year-old daughter lives with me.
Other comments or questions? You are clearly thriving in the transitions program, and I so appreciate you and your parents and the staff that you work so closely with for being here tonight and just sharing more of that. Since I also am in Richfield, I'm curious, are you going to be at the Richfield Target or the
Yeah,
Edina?
Richfield Target.
I'm gonna look for you.
Okay.
When you see me, maybe you'll remember, oh, that's that lady from that meeting.
Yeah, I'll be working on the clothing section. So
I'm there all the time. That'd be great. Sid Lally, thank you so much. Thanks for being here tonight. We'll do one more round of applause. Thank you.
thank you.
Yes, a well-deserved hug. So, as our guests can stay or leave, whatever your preference, we will keep moving, and I'm going to turn things over to our superintendent for her report this evening on our strategic plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, I'd also like to bring up our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Elizabeth Lodge Rogers, who's going to help me in this presentation. As you know, the strategic plan is a collective effort, so all the faces on the screen and the people in our spaces are part of making this thing come alive. So we would like to give you a little update, and we'll start with just the timeline. Just so a reminder of where we are in the design. We did the planning, we got all the input, we are in the design phase, and we plan to launch in the new year. I want to show you, and is Rachel is here taking pictures. She probably left. By all taking pictures. I want to thank her. The circle you see behind you will be replaced with this. So this is the visual that we will be using for our strategic plan. Rachel from the communications department designed it. It is touching on the 3 themes that we shared at a previous board meeting: achieving academic success, cultivating equity and inclusion, and promoting social emotional learning, and what we're going to call SEL. And it really is the combination of all 3 together is the work that we're going to do. So just to reiterate our each of the areas, each has a little piece that will come together in one uniform symbol. But just to reiterate, when we talked about our strategic planning and our themes that came up, there was such distinct conversations asking of, what does this mean for students, staff, and families? And so you'll see statements underneath each theme that really talks about when we succeed and complete our strategic plan in 5 years, students will meet their individual, staff will, and then families. You'll see that theme throughout. So that's our first piece. The second one is equity and inclusion. They're cultivating equity and inclusion. And you'll see the students, staff, and families, again, the statements and our focus group are working on what is specific words defining what does it mean when we talk about district culture. And so that's some of the work they're doing now that we'll be sharing. And our last one is social emotional, promoting social emotional learning, again with that same theme of statements. So when you put the puzzle pieces together, you get this beautiful visual. And then on the next slide, you can see it one more time. And then what I'll do now is pass it off to our assistant superintendent to talk about the accountability system that is designed to support our strategic plan and the process that we're in right now and next steps. Elizabeth.
So thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and thank you, Superintendent Dowd. It's really been fun, and we're kind of really getting into now, it's getting real. We have to get some goals, and we've been working on definitions and spent some time on our values and beliefs. But as Marcy mentioned, Superintendent Dowd mentioned, this is our accountability system. So right now, along the bottom layer are the 3 focus areas, each for one of those themes. And academic success group, we have a nice diverse group of staff. Those are led by Ben McGrath, and he's working with that team. Our social emotional learning focus area group, again, a group of staff working together, led by Dr. Tanya Allen. And then Kiara, our equity and inclusion leader, is leading the 3rd group. We invited families. We had some families that expressed an interest in being a part of the groups. Unfortunately, dates didn't line up, but they're hoping to be here next week on November 2nd, which is our 3rd meeting. So these folks are working on those areas of definition. We spent some time around values and beliefs, and now setting up the first set of goals. One of those goals is a year-long goal that in essence gets us through year 1, 18 months of the strategic plan, with a short-term 6-month goal that we will implement upon your approval from January to June to make sure we're ready to leap into action on that annual goal in each of these areas. So these folks are meeting, working after hours. It's been a lot of high energy and a lot of fun. The next level of accountability, if you will, is our strategic implementation team. And this group is directors and other key leaders in the district meet weekly, either in a meeting that's kind of structured. We do updates around strategic implementation, teamwork, professional learning. That's where procedures come for kind of a first view or round when we're talking about procedures or practices. So that team will meet specifically around our progress within the strategic plan 4 times a year. Our core group, which is the larger group, but a subset of the whole group that came together for the retreat in June. Gosh, time has flown, right? We'll meet twice a year, and again, affirming and monitoring progress and providing us feedback. And then, of course, you as our school board will, one, approve the strategic plan, we hope December 14th. And we're going to have it ready. Whew. And then we will provide you with updates consistently over the course, at least annually, probably. I know you will see the activities taking place in things that we might bring forward to you as a board, but also as you come out to our buildings through get on the bus and all those other great things that we get to do together. So that's kind of the accountability piece. We wanted to make sure that we get these goals set and then bring back each of those target focus groups next year to support implementation and really monitoring how things are going and what are we missing and did we miss. And we wanted to let those folks know that we kind of want to keep them in the fold and we want to keep bringing them back. And we recognize there'll be attrition over the course of the 5 years, but we hope to keep the momentum. And right now they are an enthusiastic group. So we're not going to have any trouble with that. So that's kind of where we are. To let you know where we've been since September and October, we met with parent and caregiver focus groups out in the community and at our schools. We also did some phone calls with some folks that weren't able to join us at those community events. We met with student focus groups. That was really fun and quite a treat and a lot of input. And we know we'll be going back with our students for some of that accountability with them. So they had very definite ideas and a lot of good thoughts. And then we started the targeted focus groups. We've met twice and meet again in November to finalize our goal areas. And then we'll begin once adopted some of the implementation planning. So that's kind of where we are. It's been really, really exciting, very fast paced, but fun. So next steps, November 9th, Marcy will be bringing drafted goals and kind of a draft of where things are, because we recognized right away we needed to define terms. We'll have some definitions that the groups wrestled with. We spent time with our instructional and operational leaders yesterday around definitions and around the mission was affirmed and remains the same, but we've taken a look at values and belief statements, and I'm excited to be able to share some of that draft language with you. And then December 14th, you all will review that final plan and approve it, we hope. So that's kind of where we are. Do we have any questions?
Thank you so much. It's just a really helpful update about the big things that are coming in the next 2 months. Yeah, questions or comments for Elizabeth or Marcy? Shannon, go ahead.
I just had a couple of questions. And first, just to say, I love this presentation. It's so clear and I really like it. I'm not feeling confused at all. So thank you for that. I did have just a question on the the graph, I guess. Yeah, the structure, where at the bottom you have the 3 focus areas. Where, it says that they meet up to 6 times per year,
Mhm.
which makes me wonder, would they never meet?
Oh, that's a very good question. No, they'll always meet. We just kind of wanted to give them the outside, because it's a commitment. And when we sent out Marcy sent out an invitation to all staff. We had quite a few folks respond. Of course, there's commitments. We meet from 4 to 6:30 on Thursdays, not board meeting nights. Folks did wonder, what does this mean? So when we said up to 6, it was just saying we should have probably said no more than 6, might have been clearer. It's just, that's our commitment. And we do envision there will likely be some smaller implementation groups or a couple representatives from a focus group that might be meeting with the team that is already doing maybe some of that work or might support that work. So thank you for asking.
Sure. And then just wanting to know, I know that this is high level and it makes sense that staff is making up these focus area groups, but
Mhm.
is there intentional ways in which that staff is going to be bringing in student voice to these group meetings, in particular in the evaluation process?
Absolutely. And so we were able to really tap into student voice for taking these broad theme areas and saying, what does this mean for you? When you think about meeting your individual goals, your academic goals, your career, what do you need from us? And boy, and so what these target groups did was take that information, parents, students, and then bring their lens as well, but honor that work and bring it together. And we do anticipate, as part of our formative assessment as we go through and progress monitor, that we'll be coming back with iterations of that. And we have a momentum for a lot of student involvement. And I know our policy, ad hoc policy group has heard a little bit about the level of student voice that we're bringing even to recommendations around policies. The same will be happening here. And this is definitely an exciting transition into providing students voice and choice.
Just to add a little bit more to that, we do have now developed structures for student groups
Yeah.
that we access and provide feedback. And so at the retreat, Kiara, our Director of Equity and Inclusion, talked about the model of input and that it always is coming back. So when we talk about the strategic plan, it'll go back to the students and say that provided input and say, do you see your voice in this? And so each of the individual groups that were part of it will have that opportunity to look at it too and say, do you feel like we captured what you were trying to share with us?
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And I think in particular, the academic success, I think student voice really, I mean, we saw tonight, what were the important things? Yeah. And it wasn't a letter grade. So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you for this work.
Other comments or questions?
I freaking love that graphic. Can I
Yeah.
just say that?
You, what is it?
I love that graphic. I said freaking. If anybody was worried about it.
Good, thank you for that. I
Thank
do
you.
too. And I don't know if Rachel left or she, nope, yeah, just really grateful for
You
her
can
work.
quote me on that.
Okay. I will. Thank you. I'll make sure she gets that information. We're really pleased with it too. And we really wrestled with circle something different and not one better than the other or more than the other and trying to make them connected. And so, yeah, it went through many iterations and I think we're feeling pretty happy with the theme right now.
Yeah, very much.
So thank you for that.
It also just gave me a delightful flashback to my last Richfield school board meeting where one of our student board members called one of our existing policy, like a component of it stupid. And then he was like, oh, wait, can I say that? I'm like, yes, you can say that. Like, that's why we're excited that you're here because you're just going to call it out. It was amazing. Back to why we need our kids at the table. All right. Any final comments or questions? All right. Thank you again and excited to have much more time with this on November 9th and December 14th. And then having a final strategic plan in place. We have 2 reports in our business services and labor relations section of the agenda this evening. First is the facilities reports on our 2023 summer projects and future plans that May Hawkins, our Executive Director of Business Services, is going to present.
Good evening, Chair Brackey,
Evening.
board members and administrators. I am happy to bring you the 2023-24 Facilities Department Annual Board Report. This report's a summary. It's just going to highlight a few of the projects that we did this last year. While the pictures in the report are great, and thanks to my facility staff for running around getting pictures of the before and after, I strongly encourage you to visit our sites and see our buildings and our staff in person. So our learning intentions tonight are that the board will have a better understanding of the building projects that were done, the LTFM bond projects that were completed. We'll do an update on our solar system and we'll talk about the projects that are planned for the next 2 summers. And then finally, we'll talk about the strategic priorities work of the facilities department. So we're going to start with the District Services Center, but first of all, I'm going to let you know, you see that little circle in the upper right-hand corner that says LTFM bond, so that I don't have to say this is an LTFM bond project over and over again. If you could just look for the little circle in the upper right-hand corner, that will tell you this is an LTFM bond project. All right. So our first project here was at the District Service Center, and it's our boiler replacement project. I'm not going to point with this, but anyway, the boilers here needed replaced. You can see there's a big rusty mark on the floor there. So one of our boilers was leaking. It was shut down several months before our replacement project. And the other one started leaking just before we did the replacement this last summer. So that's called just in time. Right? So they were replaced with Arco boilers and with an efficiency rating of 87 to 98%. We also added, I'm going to get this wording wrong, variable frequency drives on our heat pumps that are on the floor there to further increase our efficiency. The next project was also here at the District Service Center, and that was our elevator system upgrade. We needed to update our elevator system because we were no longer able to get parts for the existing system. We were buying them off of Craigslist and eBay and shipping them here from California. So upgrading the entire unit all at once is more cost effective and efficient than doing it in pieces. So that's what we did. So the new equipment included soft start controls, which will increase the life of the equipment. We have a new door operator, a hydraulic power unit, LED lights, ADA compliant phone and controls upgrades. And in addition, we upgraded the walls, the flooring, and the trim of the elevator. The last project here at the District Service Center is the roofing and wall project. The roofing, the gray roofing that you can see there, and you can almost see where the wet spots were, but when we had the roofing tested, it has wet spots in it and needed to be restored. So thankfully it was a restore and not a replacement. And this is the restored roof. And then that wall behind the roof was also leading to moisture accumulation problems. So we did have leaks here at the District Service Center and we would patch and then the leak would show up somewhere else. So hopefully this will take care of all of that by replacing that wall and then coating it with metal. So. Now we're going to go down to South Education Center. At South Education Center, to meet the changing needs of our students, this was a kitchen in the front here, and there was a classroom behind this kitchen area. We needed a larger space to meet the needs of our students, and we didn't need quite so much kitchen equipment. So we removed the wall between the two spaces. We took out the kitchen equipment that was on the left, and the kitchen equipment that's on the right is still there as a teaching area for students. Also at South Education Center, they have a lighting system replacement. So our lighting system was from 2005. And once again, we were having challenges getting parts to update and replace our lighting system. And we had actually had to override the lighting system to be have some classrooms be full power on because the lights were going out. And so our new system is an LED system. Let's see, I've got to get all my notes here. The LED system throughout allows each classroom to set their own lighting level. There's also sensory lighting in some of our classrooms that they can control with an iPad. And the upgrade also included installing updated lighting in our main entrance areas and stairways to provide those with better lighting.
Ask a quick question.
Sure.
On the lighting, do we find that there's a large percentage of our students who need variable lighting in order to have them self-regulate and so on and so forth?
Yes, so several of our buildings have variable lighting or colored lighting to assist our students.
Thank you.
I might argue that all students do better with that kind of lighting.
Adults too.
So the lightings in the classroom are, the standard setting is at 75% of the lighting, and the staff can lower it or increase it depending upon the student's needs for each individual classroom. So we're going to move over to West Education Center. For West Education Center, we did actually do a phase 1 roofing restoration for West Education Center as part of our regular building maintenance in the summer of 2022. And with the LTFM bond, we were able to complete and do phase 2 of the West Education Center. So that completes the West Education Center roof, and knock on some wood, it should be good for another 29 years now. Also at West Education Center, not all facilities maintenance projects are planned. Sometimes life happens, right? So at West Education Center, we had one of the HVAC pipes in an area of the building burst and flood the main entryway and the classrooms off of that entryway area. So we had a big cleanup. All that carpet had to be pulled. And so West Education Center got some new carpet. The carpet at West Education Center is due for replacement. And we were looking and we're trying to replace that as we can find funding to do so. So at North Education Center, North had our smallest amount of projects for the year. And so we repurposed some doors from one area of the building that we're no longer using and to another area to meet a need for the building. So. At Ann Bremmer Education Center, a site requested project was to add key access locks to their bathrooms, provide security for those bathrooms. And so that project was also completed this last year. Ann Bremmer also got a new kiln, which included electrical, ventilation, and a wall. And the kiln was paid for by a grant. The installation of the kiln and the building of the wall was completed by our own facility staff in order to be as cost effective as possible. To meet the needs of our student population and keep students safe, the district decided to enclose the open staircases at both North Education Center and South Education Center. The previous stairways had 2-story openings to the ground floor. So the new, after the stairways are now enclosed with walls to keep as much light coming into the building as possible. At the top of the stairways where the windows are, that is a wall of windows. to keep light coming in. And then also the top, very top of the stairways, there are windows installed there as well. At both South Education and West Education Centers, due to obsolescence and breakage, we replaced the fire alarm systems. So the new fire alarm systems have voice evacuation, and they also have future capabilities to be, gotta get my wording right here, to be emergency or mass notification systems. And then, last but not least, is our solar update. So I'm just going to provide a little background information because this has been a multiple year project, right? So at the March 24th, 2022 board meeting, the board approved the combined solar array purchase, lease, and power purchase agreements. The district has no upfront costs for these systems. The systems are owned and operated by Ideal Energies. The district's obligation is to purchase the electricity generated by these systems for the next 20 years, at which point the ownership of the systems will transfer to the district. The rate per kilowatt hour is less than the rate that the district is being charged by Xcel. So the district service center solar system went live in August. It has the capacity to generate 37.6% of the electricity used in this building. Its estimated savings for year one is $4,625, and its estimated 25 year projected savings is $266,782. And it's going to produce 119,925 kilowatts a year, which will avoid 85 tons of CO2. Next is our Ann Bremmer education system. Ann Bremmer solar system went live last Thursday. It has the capacity to generate 99.7% of the electricity used at Ann Bremmer Education Center. The savings in year one is $15,946. Cumulative is $918,698 for 25 years. It's going to produce 415,586 kilowatt hours, and 295 tons of CO2 will be avoided. And then our last solar system is North Education Center. The North Education Center system is being scheduled for testing by Xcel, and we're with hopes that it'll be online before December. It has the capacity to generate 33.7% of the electricity used at North, savings of $18,710, cumulative savings of over $1 million, and it will produce 472,849 kilowatts in year one. Putting it all together for all three systems, the savings in year one is 39,281. The cumulative savings is 2.25 million. And it's going to produce over 1 million kilowatt hours of electricity in year one, which is 715 tons of CO2 avoided. And I'm going to get choked up here. I am thrilled that these solar systems are finally live. I started exploring this project in 2021, and it's now a reality, enabling our schools to be part of a sustainable energy solution. So. I'm just happy. I'm just happy. All right, the future. So for next summer, we will be looking at the SEC partial roof replacement or restoration. It may be a restoration that is going out to bid currently, and that bid award will come to the board in December. We will also be working on the NEC boiler replacement project for next year. Some 2-year projects, because they're HVAC projects, are the ABEC HVAC replacement. So there's a section of ABEC's HVAC system that did not get upgraded due to we ran out of funding in our remodel project, right? So there's probably like 8 classrooms left to do with new units, and then the SEC HVAC system repairs and the WEC HVAC replacements. And so those are going to be 2-year projects. They're big projects. They require a lot of engineering and things like that first, and then the project will happen. And then in the summer of 2025, we have the SEC parking lot and the ABEC tunnel encapsulation. Those are all the projects from the LTFM bond. Strategic priorities for our facilities teams. So our facilities teams contributes to student outcomes and employee wellness. So there's lots of documentation to support that clean, well-maintained buildings are linked to feelings of safety by all. And then also studies that show that well-maintained facilities lead to increased attendance of both students and staff and increased school pride. The facilities department will also be implementing a new work order system to improve equitable access to resources. The food service and facilities departments combined to create a racial equity team in August of 2021. Those staff met for 2 years in professional development activities every month. And now those staff have the opportunity to join their school site equity teams, and then they'll still have ongoing professional development. A big thank you to our behind the scenes heroes, the facilities department. So there is a big thank you being passed around. What I'll do is I'll make copies of that and it'll be sent out to the facilities department offices at each of the school sites for them to hang up. And then a big thank you to you, our school board, for supporting our facilities department and for supporting the ongoing restoration and maintenance of our incredible buildings. I'm going to open the floor now for questions.
Thank you, May. So much great information. It's always helpful because you provide the visuals of the things that we approved months ago for the LTFM. It's a great loop. So thank you. Questions or comments?
Could you tell me again? Oh,
go ahead, Ruthie.
Sorry. I was wondering, is Excel Energy the one that's doing the solar energy work? Who else was involved with that?
So Excel Energy we have to have Excel Energy do the testing of our system to show that it's going to work, that there's not going to be any issues with it. But Ideal Energy is the company that the district has worked with.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
My question is, in Osseo, when we were putting in, solar panels, when we own them in 20 years, there's a possibility that, we could even have more energy than we actually need to use and sell some of that. Is that something that's
So I think Excel has changed the program since then. So you'll see that Ann Bremmer had 99.7. You can no longer build a system that has more capacity than what your school building needs.
we got in it before that?
They should call it the Osseo rule.
Columbia Heights has it too.
Go ahead, Michael.
I was interested to hear about the implementation of a new work order system for equitable access to resources. Can you share a little bit more information or detail about that strategic initiative?
Sure. So we are implementing a new, it's called FMX work order system and preventative maintenance plan work ticket system. That the current system that we have, I think we've had the whole time that I've been here. I will say it's not user friendly. That a lot of times what happens is the teachers go to the office and then the office does the work ticket for them because the system is funky and, you have to do a lot of steps, right? And our staff just don't have time for that. So we're trying to create a more streamlined, easily accessible system for work orders.
And as far as the access to resource or equitable access to resources, that's not just people resources, but money resources, I would assume as well. Do each
Correct.
facility?
That's like, I need a project, I need this hung up, what do I need for my classroom, right?
I had two questions. Now, racial equity. How do you see that fitting in with our overall thing for racial equity? That was,
So I coordinated with the racial equity department on the professional development training that was provided to the food service and facilities staff. So they actually came in, they talked about the board policy, they talked about the board initiative, they talked about impact versus intent. So we work together.
okay. As far as the budget, I know you said there were some buildings that you had to go over budget. Some of the work went over budget that you had.
No,
set
what I
aside.
saw, I'll rephrase, and there was Ann Bremer. When we issued the bond for Ann Bremer, we knew from the very beginning that there wasn't enough funding to do everything that we wanted to do. Right? So we did state that at a future time, we would come back and do these other 8 classrooms.
Okay. So you do.
We
have
didn't go
grant-
over budget.
Okay. Just wondering, where were you thinking about getting the other dollars from?
So the other dollars are included in the long-term facilities maintenance bond that we issued in October of 2022.
Great. Thank you.
22.
Any other comments or questions?
You think the person that wrote the grant for the Gilm?
Sure. You see her all the time. Her name is Dr. Tanya Allen.
I mean, I know how much work writing grants are.
Yeah.
And the facilities, we're already thinking the facilities, but the fact that they built that wall is just.
And several of us got to see it last week for the get on the bus. We specifically went
You
into
mean
that
when I'm
room.
teaching my littles, yeah.
We met the teacher. We saw that it's like a hand project that they're gonna do first, where everybody's making a ceramic version of their hand. So it was neat to see it and talk with the teacher who was very excited about that. So yes, huge appreciation to Tanya for making that happen. Anything else? All right, well, May, you just get to stay right where you are for the routine monthly finance report.
Okay, I mean, just a second here, change slide
Please,
deck.
absolutely.
All right. Good evening, board, Chair Brecky, board members and fellow administrators. So September marks the end of our first quarter. So this is a formal report. A reminder that the June amounts that are shown on the monthly reports in your board packet are mostly on a cash basis still. And those amounts will continue to change up until we close last year and finish the audit. The July 2022 amounts will also change as the accrual entries we book for year end are reversed in July. So we'll head right into the report here. So revenues for the month of September were $35,428,894, which is at 29.7% of budget, which is slightly below the prior 2 years. And our expenditures were $17,047,498 at 14.4% of our total budget, which is also slightly below our prior 2 years. There's a little note at the bottom of this. So all of these numbers I'm presenting to you in the presentation are without the construction fund expenses, so that we can do apples to apples when we compare to prior years. Our investments, our regular investments started the month at $11,492,074. We earned $258,401 in interest. We added $14 million to our investments, and we ended the month of September with $25,750,474 in our investments. For our long-term construction investments, we began the month with $4,377,911. We added $5,614 of interest. We had 64,403 in construction draws, and we ended the month with $4,319,122 remaining for future construction projects, which we just talked about. For the month of September, for disbursements through accounts payable, we did disbursements totaling $4,524,990. Payroll disbursements of $2,918,372 for total disbursements of $7,443,362. And our donations included lumber for a picnic table at Hennepin Technical College, a gift card for Hennepin Technical College, and a $500 cash donation for Walt. Are there any questions before the board acts on the September 2023 financial report?
You may. Just seeing the shaking of heads that there aren't any questions or comments, very clear and helpful as always. So with that, we could entertain a motion to approve the September 2023 monthly finance report.
Second.
We have a motion by Renee Bowman and a second by Ruthie Dallas. Any final discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and the finance report is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move into the board business section of our agenda and have a sizable update under policy review and revision. You all have heard the policy ad hoc committee has been hard at work and are excited to bring tonight a first read of changes to the 200 policy around development, adoption, implementation, and review. And I'm going to turn things over to Superintendent Dowd for just an overview of where this currently stands and work that has been taking place.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members and ad hoc committee, that has been helpful. So Kim is on it, Jackie's on it, Crystal's on it, and then leaders in the district. And we have been meeting and talking about the board officer and operations section first. You approved what we call BOO 200. So it's a board operations, officers and operations. And that set the course of how we will review policies. And we gave a huge commitment to our equity lens in reviewing policies and including anybody would have voice into language changes that are either impacted by the policy or need to implement the policy. And so it's not done in isolation. We really sit down and talk about who is impacted and who needs to implement and how do we bring their voices to review of policies. So before you, I'll talk first just about the board officers and operations section, and then I'll talk about the next bucket we're going to do, which is the student section. But before you, what we talked about as an ad hoc committee is District 287 has a history of having more procedures than policies, not necessarily aligning policies to the number and category that MSBA and what most traditional districts have in regards to an organizational format. We might have a student policy that's in health and medical and student and technology. And so when you're cross-referencing sections of policies, which we use MSBA, a Middle School Board Association, that can be difficult. Like, do we have a policy? Do we have a procedure? So we did a significant analysis of one, legislative changes, and then what are the MSBA required policies? Do we have a policy or procedure? And then looked at what MSBA is recommending that you need to at least have legal language, either in a procedure or in an annual notification, but it doesn't necessarily need to be a policy. So in looking at where we are in District 287 in comparison to MSBA, the ad hoc committee, what you'll see is, first of all, I'm going to reference the bylaws policy summary. The overall recommendation of the ad hoc committee first will be to develop policies in accordance with MSBA list of identified mandated policies, meaning that if MSBA says it's a mandated policy, we're going to make sure District 287 has that policy. That is not the current situation. The next thing that we agreed to is that the district will develop procedures in accordance to MSBA's list of recommended or legal language requirements. So if it's recommended, we'll make sure we have a procedure. We also acknowledge that some policies will need a procedure because sometimes the policies are really high or they say a district needs to develop a procedure. In those cases, a procedure will be connected to that policy. And then we also agreed that we're going to move away from our current organization of how we do policies and align the buckets or sections in accordance to MSBA, so that when you need to do a cross-reference and you have a huge legislative session that does enormous language changes, it's an easier cross-reference. Instead of reading our policies or procedures and saying, okay, that's connected to MSBA's policy. And so all that crosswalk has been done. And so what we are recommending is that as we move forward, what will come to the board are the MSBA required policies. And that means we would eliminate things that are not required and then either put them in a procedure, and for the board section, put it in our bylaws. Okay? Questions about those recommendations or anything that the ad hoc committee would like to add?
So
Go ahead.
if there are areas that you feel there need to be a policy, will you be entertaining that? Oh, okay. So
Absolutely.
it's still open.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we'll for surely fulfill the requirement of the mandated policies.
I feel like the overarching theme is streamline, focus, and ensure that we have the required policies and that it's clearly identifiable what they are and where they are. And so that's what we're trying to orient around.
Yeah, and I would add to that, aligning with MSBA so that when legislative changes come to required policies, we can leverage their work in terms of what they say about how it needs to be updated, instead of us trying to interpret legislation. Okay, that'd be strike one. And two, try to scan our policies and procedures and go, does that apply? Where does that apply? Right? So it's an efficiency kind of a thing too.
Absolutely. All right. So if we look at the bylaw policy summary, the summary of changes would be eliminating what we currently call BOO 100 goals, 120 board superintendent relations, 140 compensation, 220 board structure and decision making, 240 board member conflict of interest. The why is because these are not required policies, and the language that is part of these current policies will be put into the bylaws. So as you see, as we go through the changes, I will reference where it came from. So under number one, or number two of the summary changes, legal status of the board. Under B, we did remove language, just really as it's the role of the superintendent, and added finance. We really wanted to address that the governance role of finance is held at the board. You approve the annual budget. We felt that was currently missing in our bylaws. And we also added that your role would be monitoring policies. So those are two additions. Under section 2, board members and organization, we removed the number 11. One, we had 12, and we decided not. Anytime there was a change of members, we didn't think a number needed to be here. That it's really just identifying that there needs to be an appointed member of every one. So we don't have to change the bylaws every time something changes.
Question.
Yeah.
You said the board would be responsible for monitoring the policy. Who creates the policy?
So under our policy that we approved, it is the ad hoc committee will support the superintendent and a subcommittee. So of the people that are impacted by the policy or have to implement the policy will be part of reviewing the policy that then goes to the ad hoc committee that then goes to the board.
Yeah, but bottom line is the board is responsible for creation of
that's
policy.
what-
Yeah.
that's one, and that's still.
That's the
Yeah, that's still the
overriding
Right.
governance and approval.
Right.
Exactly.
Correct. Under, let's see, 3A, we added language around not only applicable laws, but really the equity policy and our continued commitment. Under number 3, we removed old language and added new language to be clear on the governance role of reviewing and approving the budget. Under section 3B, 7, this is where, if you look at 7 and 8, we took out language regarding the superintendent, and for number 8, we really discussed the superintendent and board relationship, which came from the policy that was eliminated, language from the policy that was eliminated, and then renumbering under that section. If you go to section 4, we added, we removed "and other officers as determined by the board." One, we wanted to be clear of our current officers and didn't want that we didn't feel like that open language was appropriate, that if there is going to be a change of board officers, it should really come back to the board. It shouldn't be so open. We talked about duties of the chair, and under section A, we did address, since media is a big part and social media is a big part of our life in public education right now, that really it is the board chair being the spokesperson for any inquiries. And if there's, in number 7, in case of an absence of an officer, that the board chair would fill those duties until another person is appointed. When you see under and we really, on number 7, just wanted to be more clear. We felt like the language was very wordy and just shorten it up and make it clear. Under C, we talked about the role of the clerk. And again, just updating language, some older language, but in essence, all documents are prepared for the officers. And just being clear about what that meant. There's sometimes we read these and we're like, well, what does that really mean? So we said, let's
You know,
just
it's
clean
kind
it
of
up.
The party of the first part. And, you know,
Yeah. Like, all right.
So the position of when chair is absent, do we have, we have a vice chair.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't automatically go to her. The chair would decide.
So in the absent, like if something
her
needed to be
absence.
done, if something needed to be done, that the vice chair would do, then the chair would take over until a new appointment could be.
or the treasurer or the clerk. If something happened that the treasurer needed to do, but the treasurer wasn't available for some reason, then the responsibility can revert to the board chair until
But typically the vice chair would fill in if you're absent.
For the chair.
For that,
For the
yes,
chair,
if that was
correct.
that direction, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's correct. Under section 5, call and conduct of the board. Under number 2, it was added, that's coming from BOO 200. So again, the policy that we're eliminating, bringing the language into the bylaws, and then renumbering. And then I am all the way to, the additional language at the very tail end here. These were also policies that were eliminated, being brought into the bylaws, talking about the board goals and evaluation, compensation of the board, and conflict of interest. So that language was really taken from the current policies that were being eliminated because they are not required policies, but should be, we all felt should be part of our bylaws. So that goes on into C, and then just renumbering for the remainder of the bylaws. And as part of our work, we have an equity impact on the summary. So as an ad hoc committee, what we agreed to when we have approved what we call BOO 200, which is really how do we revise, adopt, and develop policies, we talked about the equity impact. And these are the questions that we would ask ourselves as at the ad hoc committee. Who is impacted by these changes, whose voice was at the table, who's benefiting, and who is intentionally being marginalized. What we do know, and what we did have discussions around, is that sometimes language is statute, and we can't change it, or it's federal language, and we can't change that. And so what we really talk about is how are we going to mitigate harm, either in how the policy is accessed, and or maybe a procedure or a proactive strategy or something would need to occur to minimize harm, but acknowledging harm could be there because of something we are unable to change. And so under each of those, you'll see an impact. We had administration, so we talked about who's impacted, the board. So we had board representation bringing language into this. Who has to implement it? Some administration, myself, was at the table participating. And that we really talked about as we change policies and adopt our bylaws, how are we making them accessible? How are we communicating? So we do have a communication plan. Anytime something's changed, it'll go to our families, back to the people that were part of the language changes or recommendations that provided input, to our staff, and then really talking about accessibility. What sometimes some of these policies are very heavy language, but they're legal language that we feel like we couldn't adjust because of the text is impactful. And so how would we write a summary and then also attach the policy if it is pretty rich text, and or having read availability when posted on the website. So we really talked about accessibility because of harm. Questions about the bylaws or the recommended changes and elimination of certain policies, current policies?
So one thing I would say first is this is both a lot of change and it's also not as much as it might feel like. And I think both of those things are true. And so this is the first read. This is the chance to sort of hear, this is the degree of change. And this is why it feels like so much change, because it's taking previously existing policies and putting them into the bylaws and making some important updates to the bylaws that we realized needed to be made. So I would say, especially now you have the time to actually go through the documents, to read them, to think about how is this landing with you? What questions do you have? So know that take the processing time that you need. This does not need to be the be all end all conversation tonight. This really is, I think, introducing to you the way in which this process is continuing to evolve as we get deeper into it. So I wanted to share that. And then we'll take questions about this. And then I think also want to make sure that we get an update on some of the student-centered work that is going to be playing a larger role in the other policies that are coming down the pike. So comments or questions? Sarah.
Yeah, I just have a huge thank you and maybe a question too. Aligning to MSBA and really starting to pick that out in the one, I mean, I'm sure that was a significant uplift and load. And so thank you for that. It is, I think, that level of congruence and you know, and understanding, especially as we're all coming from our own member districts, is really important. I'm sure that that's a lot of work. I guess my one question for that is, what is the role of staff in some of these? Like in our district, so in the 400s, not only does our policy committee look at it, but we really send it to our HR person too, to help us to update the statute and the language too. And so beyond this work group, how much do you involve your staff in updating the policies that relate to their buckets of work?
Yeah, so we are in the board policies and we're starting the next bucket, which is the student one. And the reason why we chose the student one is because it has the most legislative impact. Discipline, searches, weapons, all right. And so medication. So what we are doing, we would ask this question again at the ad hoc, like who's impacted by this policy and who has to implement it. So we have Kiara, I have to share, as a director of equity inclusion, and myself work together to develop lesson plans for the civics class, and 7 of our teachers to go through the policies and say, here's what MSBA says, here's what District 287 has, and what do you think, how is this impacting you? Like, if we can't change it, what would you like to see? So starting now and into the next 3 weeks, there'll be lessons there. It's almost like it's a 2-week set lesson planning, and staff or students will be doing that. Then also MEA Thursday morning, principals have to implement some of the discipline, the student, the weapon, the searches. So we had principals, assistant principals come in and do the exact same exercise. And so we have the feedback from administration. Some of the student policies are specific around special education. So we have a group meeting with the special education. We have, some of them have to do with our safety coaches. So we're meeting with our safety coaches. Once we gather all that information, I will be drafting that input and then bringing it to the ad hoc committee. And so that's how we will do every section. So when it comes to employees, we've already met with HR and said, here's your role in it and who's impacted and who has to implement. And then we identify each of the sections that way. And that's how we know. It will take a while to go through all the policies, to be honest, but I think we feel very good about the process.
So, I mean, I think the way I think about it in my brain is it's sort of a cascade down and a cascade back up,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
Because in the ad hoc policy committee, we asked those questions about who's impacted, who could be intentionally or unintentionally marginalized, and talk about what voices need to be heard. And then Marcy and the team go figure out how to do that. And then back at the committee, kind of come back to us and say, okay, here's how we're gonna incorporate all of these voices. And then as we come back with policy, as they come back with policy updates, then it'll be, okay, here's what we heard and here's how we incorporated that.
And so in the summary, you will get a summary of who participated. Not names, but students, how many staff members.
Yeah, I mean, just kudos to the staff, because this is a huge lift on top of everything else they do every day. And it feels like a lot because it's a structural change
Mhm.
to the organization of the policies of this district, which in the long run will be a good thing, but right now is like.
It's exciting because it feels so deliberative.
Yeah.
As far as who should be part of the process, and taking the time to actually make that possible feels right to me.
Also, I just have to say thank you to Marcy, because she does a ton of heavy lifting between each of these meetings. And
There's some very impressive spreadsheets.
I mean, it's phenomenal.
It's the other duties as assigned.
I'm a teacher, I get it.
Yeah. I'm looking to see other. Anne, go ahead.
Yeah. Two things. I'm super excited about the student input portion of this. We have done that in St. Louis Park. I can think of 2 policies that have literally specific language that came from students. In one case, middle schoolers, because we just said, here's a copy, here's a pen, and I'd like to stack this big back, and we had to go through them, and it was a ton of work, and it was completely worth it. So that is awesome. The other thing I want to say is that I've recently been through time in my school district where I have had to spend a lot more time than I expected. And because our district has, in our compensation policy, we have like a per diem for meetings that are held on days other than board meetings.
Really?
I have been able to be compensated for some of that time, which has been awesome. I would like to think about, when we get to our compensation talk in January, whether the ad hoc policy committee would be, whether that would be something that we would want to do for our policy committee, because this is a heavy lift for you all. You're meeting on days where we're not normally meeting, and I think that you should be, my opinion is that you should be compensated for that. So I would like to, I'm putting that out there to think about and talk about in January.
Thank you for sharing that. I did not know that that was something that existed in your district, and I'm glad to hear that it does. So thanks for putting that on our radar.
All our ad hoc policy committee.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
It doesn't have to be a lot of money to make a difference, to
Well, I think
feel
it-
like you're being compensated for your time. Yeah.
I think our staff puts in more time than the board members.
Sure. Yeah, in this case, though, I think you guys are, since it's the beginning, yeah.
Renee, go ahead.
Just thank you for work. I'm on our committee, policy committee at 281. And I really appreciate the suggestion on how you're grabbing student voice, which is here's the policy, here's the pen, tell us what you think. It has simplified that whole thing for me, so thank you. And I appreciate that it's being done in real time with the policy changes, not as part of an after thought, which I think is
For sure.
lends strength to that student voice because it isn't coming in as an afterthought.
Right.
So thank you.
Michelle?
Yes, Anne. When I first started at 287, that's exactly what we had. A series of board meetings where board members were compensated above and beyond. And I just would say a word of caution. And especially vis-a-vis our member districts. We already have some, I mean, we've been dealing with that from conception on, I think, the little backlash from the member district back then. So having seen both now, I just say we need to be careful and mindful. So, and I think we are. I know we are, but I just thought throw in the historic. Yeah, because we took that away soon after I joined the board. So,
For sure. And I think that when we do see this in January, we
Yeah.
should be able to see where we stand.
That's right.
And that's that neither lead nor lag. I think it
Yep.
applies here too.
right,
So, yeah,
absolutely,
for sure.
absolutely.
Go ahead,
I think I would
Michael.
only add that part of the conversation because I'm having the exact same conversation I've been pushing in Edina about this whole notion. It's not just about these ad hoc components, but it's also about the role of the chair and the significant time commitment and effort that is done. I know some districts have a different tier for that, some don't, like ours don't, so on and so forth. So I just think overall, I think the conversation I'd love to have in January is looking at, well, what is it actually that we're all committing to doing? And the amount of time for the effort that is then done, and then have a discussion about, well, what's appropriate. I would just say that that's appropriate for all of us as elected volunteers, that's an important thing because I know that the constituency has no conception of what it is that actually all of you are doing. And not to say that we should, we can't pay our way out of this, but more of, I always think that as an equity issue too. And if we're about equity, you have to look at sort of that component as well. And so I think there's a lot of different ways you could talk about it with consideration for what you just said, Michelle, but come to a consensus as to, okay, well, what's appropriate from that standpoint? And I would look forward to hearing the innovative discussion about that.
And Juanine maintains a great spreadsheet that does have all of the member district compensation information and the other intermediates. So when, and I know that there was work done to update that for this last cycle. So that's what we'll use as we come to this conversation in January. So I appreciate sort of laying the foundation now that this is something people really want to have some thoughtful conversation about, which is good.
And to keep in mind, if the chair does not want to be paid, how is that handled?
Okay.
You know, if it's a current chair, then
Yep.
I don't want to be paid.
Okay. I have never come across that before. Plot twist. Okay. Yeah, there are so many different factors that, are different for all of us and in all of our different contexts. So I agree that coming together and having the holistic conversation will be really good and important for us. Did I miss anybody? Or we're going to go back to more policies. Go ahead. Like,
All
don't
right,
cut me off yet.
so one of the, going on to the next policy, which is 214 out-of-state travel. This is a board policy regarding board members out-of-state travel. This is a required policy by MSBA, and so therefore is under review. In looking at it, there are minimal changes, but if you look under section 3, appropriate travel, we really didn't want to identify national meetings if they change or there's competing national meetings. And then under 3B, we just talked about out-of-state travel, that it must be pre-approved by the board, not should, so just clear language. Under the reimbursement, under B, The reimbursement amounts should be within the school board's approved budget, including attendance of workshops and conventions. And so we do have a board budget for travel that the administration brings forward, that which is part of the overall budget you approve. And so it would be that it would be within those constraints.
Ruthie, did you have a question?
That was my question.
Okay.
Do we have any allocated dollars?
Mhm.
Is that per board member?
No,
Or how is
it's
that
just per year. So that one of the harms when we think about the equity impact, one of the equity impacts that we identified is that not all board members would have something per year. And so there would need to develop some type of rotation if someone wanted to do out-of-state travel or convention, that it did have to be on a turn-taking basis. So that was one of the equity impacts identified. Because the budget does not support all 12.
the large?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Renee.
Clarifying then, what if somebody, I know it's hypothetical, what if somebody decides they're gonna be the person who spends all the travel money? What's our sort of controls around that?
So the board has to approve
The whole
any.
board?
Whole
Yes,
board.
Okay,
Mhm.
so it would come before us as an
Correct.
agenda item?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mhm. Any questions about the first reading and recommended changes of policy 214, out-of-state travel? Okay, I'll move to the next one. The next one is also a mandated MSBA policy. We do not have a current policy that is equity education opportunity. We do have language within our annual announcements and in our hiring practices. So what and because there's legalese in all of the language that is recommended by MSBA, we are recommending that we adopt the MSBA model policy. And then we also talked about, because of the language and the accessibility, that we would write a summary when introducing this to the public and what's the intent and why do we need this policy, just to kind of summarize and then give full access to read if anybody would like to read the policy. So this is the first reading of policy, School Board Policy 102, equal educational opportunity. Any questions? Okay, and I'm gonna go to the last one. All right, so our last one is what we call HM, which is health medical, 200 face coverings, health medical, 220 quarantine. These policies were drafted during the pandemic, and I'm sure in your home districts that was drafted too. As you know, much has changed since these policies were put in place, and actually these policies are completely out of date. We don't call it quarantine anymore. We talk about isolation. Masks are optional. And what we're really asking is to eliminate these policies and move them into procedures. You will see there is a link of our procedures. When it's in a procedure, it means the board does not approve it. And it allows us to adjust procedures based on recommendations from the Minnesota Department of Health at a more flexible rate than policies. And so the administration and ad hoc committee is recommending that we eliminate HM 200 face coverings, eliminate HM 220 quarantine, and keep our current practice of current COVID procedures that we share with staff, families, and students. Questions about that?
So to recap, this is the first read of some fairly significant changes to the bylaws because it's incorporating what used to be policy and updating language. It is the revision of one and addition of another to required policies, which is why they are standalone. And then elimination of two policies that are now outdated, that are from our COVID time, and having what is currently in those policies evolve to be procedures that are more flexible and nimble. So just wanted to recap all of what that represented.
Nice
And you
recap.
did very well with that.
The ad hoc committee has been busy.
The superintendent has been very busy.
I just have one question about the last two, which is I know we were working with our medical staff in St. Louis Park on this, so are folks comfortable with it becoming?
Are they comfortable with?
And I guess
elimination?
my other question really, the subject is, like, do we believe that the recommendations that we're getting from the Department of Health are sufficient and meet our needs?
So the staff that are involved in the recommendations are health and safety and nurses. So they have input in reviewing the recommendations come from the Minnesota Department of Health and putting those into actual procedures for the day-to-day. Currently, the Minnesota Department of Health in regards to the equity statement indicates that isolation, once you test positive for COVID is recommended. In District 287, because of the medical and fragile need of our students, we are requiring the 5-day isolation, masking 5 days after. That's what our current procedures have in place, which would be more restrictive than Minnesota Department of Health.
And I feel like there was a time in which it felt like we, as a board, really felt like we needed to be backing the policies in order for staff to feel good about, right, the procedures, that like the board was behind those procedures. So that, I guess I'm asking, it feels okay. It feels like the guidance that we're getting is sufficient and that we are able to institute procedures even if we don't have a board policy.
We feel as administration comfortable implementing the procedures without a policy. It is also on the honor system.
Yep.
And so, I don't want to be naive.
Which it always was.
Right, yep, to be naive about reporting positive cases. And when you are out for isolation, you do use sick time. And so we do have a mechanism to support those that may not have enough sick time where you can donate. But it is impactful on sick time. And we had conversations about our students and the fragile nature, and we thought that was
We should
important.
stick
We
with
should stick
the-
with this right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so as you continue to sit with this, looking more at the language, percolating, feel free to get in touch with the superintendent. You can get in touch with me. If you would feel more comfortable getting in touch with Jackie or Kim, I will volunteer them as well as fellow ad hoc committee members, or all three of us, because you can do that and not violate the open meeting law, given the size of our board. So just know that we are here for questions or comments that might come up before we come back to this at our next meeting. Okay. With that, I'm going to share just a few sort of FYI specifically around calendars. Our next board meeting is November 9th. It is our one and only board meeting for the month of November. So wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. And then also wanted to share an invitation that you will be getting from Juanine, which is the North Education Center Family Night, which is also on Thursday, November 9th, from 4 to 5:30. So if you have time before our board meeting and would like to participate in Family Night, we have all been invited to do so. And so look for more information from Juanine and a way to let her know so that the North team knows to expect us.
It's also the day of the AMSD conference.
It is, which is early in the day.
So you could
So
go from the conference.
I'm just gonna hang out up here all day long.
The conference is right nearby, so.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's just up on 694. So yes, that'll be a great day. We can just all hang out all day. Our next Get on the Bus event is December 5th with our itinerant programs. And so there will be sign up for that. And then our next lunch with representatives from our local 2209 is December 12th at 1 p.m. And that is here in person at the District Service Center, and there is also a virtual option to attend. So November 9th, December 5th, December 12th are the main dates that I wanted to put on everybody's radar this evening. Juanine, did I miss anything? Okay. Marcy, did I miss anything?
No, I will add the dates into the newsletter for Friday.
Great.
So that you have another reminder.
Okay. So with that, we will move to once around the table and any information or updates people would like to share with each other this evening. Go ahead, please.
We had Dr. McGuire's first day this week.
Congratulations.
She started on Monday. We had our first board meeting with her on Tuesday. We are very grateful that she is helping us.
Good luck.
I will just share, as I mentioned earlier, a number of us were able to go to the Ann Bremmer Educational Center for Get on the Bus. We were on a beautiful little school bus on a beautiful fall day and had a great visit for several hours. We had students as tour guides leading us around the building, and they talked with us about their experiences and just also time with staff, hearing about some of the work that they are doing directly with each other and with students. So it was a great morning. I highly recommend, if your schedule allows it, to participate in one or more of them that are still coming up this year. Go ahead, Michelle.
Just on that note, they invited us to come and really engage with families. And so that first opportunity is what day?
Those are actually different programs. So the North Education Center is on Thursday, November 9th. I think we're still waiting for specific details for ABEC, but we told them, if you ever want us present, just let us know. All you need to do is ask. So hopefully we'll be getting more things like this North Education Center Family Night on our radar. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay. I thought you.
Well, oh, no, I'm sorry. I also attended the lunch with our unions and a little sobering. There are issues out there that we all acknowledge, but yeah, they don't go away quickly. But on the other hand, the energy and the joy and all the good things that are happening at ABEC were very evident and genuine. So, yeah, I love.
Yeah, it was great to be able to do both. And I'll just share, I think the conversation with 2209 was really, it was meaningful. We were talking about really important things, and much of it did center around the very real shortages that we're experiencing and the impact that that has on our staff. And so I think that was the tenor of the entire conversation. And to Michelle's point, it's things that we're all dealing with in different ways, but we got to talk very, very real about how that's playing out in 287, especially given the needs of our kids. And so that's just a little bit more, I think, of what Michelle was alluding to. Anything else?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Where are the drums?
We need to rumble.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
No, I appreciate that. All right. So with that, we could entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a motion by Michael Birdman and a second by Heidi Marty. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The chair votes aye, and we are adjourned at 8:09 p.m. Have a good night, everybody.
Careful,
Yeah,
drive.
policy.
Yeah, we had, you did.